what we believe to be one more Small Business Administration representative to join us. Oh, and speak of the devil.
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, nice. Well, we were just saying to everybody, welcome. And if you're looking for the SBA conversation about PPP forgiveness, you're in the right space. And that we were going to be waiting for one more amazing member of the Small Business Administration staff to join us. And then, ta-da, here you are, Mike.
I know. Always on time.
Hey, all the cool kids. I get it. We were discussing the odds against my being on time just before you joined. So for everybody at home, we're going to be talking about PPP loan forgiveness, and specifically as it pertains to the long form that goes with that. And so today we have 3 members of the local Small Business Administration staff with us to help explain how all of this goes. And so we have both Mike and Carolina and Sheila with us. And so guys, could you briefly, if you're a member of the amazing SBA staff, could you tell us just briefly who you are and what your role is so that people can have a face and a name before we jump right in?
All right, I'm Mike. I'm going to start this show. I'm Mike McWhorter. I am the lead lending relations specialist. I'm sorry for not having my video up today, but I've been having a little trouble with my internet, and I didn't want to take a chance on losing y'all. So I'm trying not to stream too much. Today with me, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I have our staff here in Kansas City. The Kansas City District Office was formed in 1954. It was one of the original 10 district offices for the SBA. We service Kansas. We service the eastern third of the state from just about Marathon or Topeka and everything east of there. We have that covered. And we cover the western part of Missouri from Columbia westward. So we're a unique district office having 2 states to have to cover. And today I have with me Sheila Forrester and I have Carolina Vargas. Introduce yourself, guys.
All right, I can go next. My name is Carolina Vargas, Lender Relations Specialist. I've been with the SBA about 3 years now. Love just being here. My job is to actually train the banks on the SBA programs, the 7A program, but we obviously have been just hit with this PPP and EIDL loans that we're here to help the community.
Gotcha. And Sheila.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Forrester. I started with the SBA last November, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And then, of course, COVID hit. So we have been in the throes of PPP and EIDL. I am the Economic Development Specialist and Public Information Officer.
That's great. So these are the people who work day in, day out on these programs, and not only for borrowers, but specifically work on these programs for the lenders, like the people who gave you your PPP money. They're the ones answering questions for them too. So deep expertise on the bench today as we have a chance to ask questions of the group as it pertains to PPP loan forgiveness and specifically the long form. So as we're here, please take this opportunity to ask questions of our SBA team. There is a Q&A function inside of the Zoom. If you would ask your questions inside that Q&A function, it's easiest for us to see what you want to know and get an answer from these folks. Because one of the things we were seeing is as the SBA was presenting the deep dive information and slides, people were like, but I have a question. And there was so much information, not a lot of time to get that addressed. So this is really intended to be the time for you to ask your particular PPP loan questions. And I have a few that were previously asked in advance that I'll start us off with today. So SBA officials, what do you say? Will my bank reach out to me about PPP loan forgiveness and what to do, or am I supposed to do this and know something?
In most cases, Rebecca, most cases the lenders will be reaching out to them because real quick, brief description here that might help people understand a whole lot of it is The SBA and Treasury, this was an act that was signed into law in March 27th by the President and Congress. And then April 3rd, we rolled out the program. The program came through Treasury. Treasury is the one that has the money that put into the program, but they did not have a mechanism or a loan program to instigate or to get the money on the street to a small business. And they looked at the SBA and said, we're going to use your program. This unfortunately is not like an SBA program. As I say in all of our meetings, we took off an airplane and we started building it. Now we're trying to build the landing gear so we can land this thing. With that being said, the banks lend you their money. That's their money. The Treasury didn't come in and give a bank $10 million to go out and lend. The bank had to lend their own funds. And so when I say the banks are more than happy to help you, it's because they're wanting you to get that forgive so they get the money back sooner than later. So banks will be real proactive on it. I know that a lot of banks are sort of waiting in the wings for Congress because there's a whole lot of information out there. The last 2 days, some of you have been on the call with us. We've had these roundtables discussing different aspects. There's a lot of information out there about 150,000 or less being a blanket forgiveness. A lot of lenders are waiting to see if that happens when Congress actually does another stimulus act or addresses the $132 billion we have left over in the PPP program. So a lender will do that, but it's still going to be up to the small business owner to be a little more proactive and reach out there and see. And in the instructions, as we covered the first day about the 3508 easy form, and now we're on the long form, as we call it. Again, this is all enacted by the Treasury, which is the IRS. So they love long forms. They love a lot of language and information in them.
That's great. So what I hear you saying is if I don't do this, my bank will probably give me a heads up that it needs to be done, but they're also slow playing it a little bit, waiting to see what Congress does. But if I don't do something, can I just miss the window on this altogether? Let's say I don't do anything and my bank doesn't tell me. Can I miss this?
Theoretically speaking, you could, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Everybody has 10 months.
Okay. Everybody has 10 months from when?
From when the cover period ends, which the cover period can be 8 or 24 weeks if your loan was approved before June 5th. After June 5th, it's a straight 24 weeks. So if your lender made your loan June 6th, that basically 24 weeks is like 6 months. So from June, you have 16 months. So 12 and 4 more would be July, August, September. You'd be October of 2021 before you'd have any payments due based on that information.
Okay, this seems really important. Let me clarify here. So depending on when PPP money showed up in my account is how much time I have to spend it for forgiveness. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So hit me with the dates. If I got the money before what, I have how long to spend the money? And then if I got the money after when, I have how long to spend the money for forgiveness? Like, hit me with that, because I think there's some confusion out there.
Hit me with your best shot. Okay, here we go. If you got your loan done between April 3rd and June 5th.
Okay.
If that loan was approved then, you were under the old CARES Act of having 8 weeks to spend your money.
Okay. June
5th is when they signed the new additional act, which was called the Flex Act, into law, and it supersedes the law of the CARES Act, which had 8 weeks, and they give everybody 24 weeks because a lot of people were having trouble spending their money because they were shut down. So if you're before June 5th, you can either spend your money in that 8 week you were allocated, or you can take the 24. It's your option. It's up to the small business owner's option. If you're after June 5th, it's 24 weeks. There is no option of 8 weeks. Now, if you spend, though, real critical on this too, Rebecca, is if I spend all my money in week 12, do I have to sit there and twiddle my thumbs and wait till week 24? And the answer is no. You can go ahead and apply for forgiveness once you deplete. Keyword, depleting your funds for eligible use of proceeds, which is wages and expenses associated with them. So as long as they do that, they do it. So you're sitting there, and if you finish spending all your money in 12 weeks, then you can contact your bank and go, hey, I've depleted all my funds, or what's the next step? Or they can get with, also if a bank says, well, you need to fill out an application, let's say, And then that's going to be the proper time to be contacting you and the SBDC. Yes, you, I know. And that way y'all will be able to assist them with your talent you got there that's been through all the trainings and be able to help them and navigate through the application. And at this point in time, guys listening to me, I want to take this moment just here. It's a gold nugget moment for you. These applications, although they may seem complicated because we deal with it daily, you deal with it once. It may seem easy for us, it may seem complex for you. But do not go out and pay somebody $1,500, $500, $1,000 to complete your application. And the reason is, guys, Rebecca and her team and the ones, the SBDCs, as we talked about yesterday, all across the nation and the territories are there to assist you because our taxpayer dollars already funded them. And they can help you and give you a second set of eyes to look at the numbers, look over the application. If you have questions about, as we get into today, you know, FTEs, full-time employees, it'll be somebody you can call. It'll be able to give you the answers and give you the help you need. So please do not go out and pay somebody who's just, they're just taking money from individuals. And we already see it happening in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, because we're here to help. Our Johnson County brothers and sisters across the state line on the Kansas SBDC are here to help, not to mention the Women's Business Center and SCORE and all the other SBA programs, although SBDCs have really kind of jumped to the fore on this one. So that's what we're here for and why we're leading some of this conversation. So one of the things that you guys mentioned was depletion for eligible expenses. And so as a reminder, that's payroll and mortgage interest, and what else? Hit me with what those were again.
I wonder if my team's going to join in and help me here.
How about we let Carolina have this one, because she's the one who ends up on the phone with so many of my clients.
That's it.
That's a true statement. So that we will talk about the mortgage, utilities, and what was the third one?
Rent.
I just lost my train of thought.
All right, you have business mortgage interest that's deductible. You have rent and lease payments that are deductible.
Oh, there we go. Rent and lease.
Yes.
And utilities.
And you.
All right. So as I go through this, so I got to be tracking what I spent on those things, right? What I spent on payroll, what I spent on rent and lease things, mortgage, interest, and utilities. So before I start this process, I should probably put my hands on what I spent for those things since COVID started, right? Like that's probably a decent step one. Hey, I'm thinking of applying for forgiveness. I should probably figure out what in the heck I spent on those things that qualify. Step one. Step two, probably call the SBDC. And then we're going to say, okay, let's look at this together. Because what you have for employees in payroll records is going to be a big piece of this, right? Along those lines, I see a question in the Q&A. I'm going to simplify this and then try and drill down into the details of this question. First of all, for loan forgiveness, what are we considering an FTE or full-time equivalent? How is that calculated?
Okay, so a full-time employee is somebody who works 40 hours. And we're using the labor board, United States Labor Board for the numbers we come into. So a full-time employee that we'll be referring to all today as FTEs are calculated based on that. You calculate anybody under 37 hours, I believe, gets kicked over to the part-time thing. And on the Schedule A, when you're filling it out, you actually list your employees and the hours they work, and you count up the number because each employee works 40 hours as a one. Now, if I have an employee that's working 45 hours a week every week, that's still one. It doesn't carry over because we're just counting the employees who are full-time.
Okay. So you get, so if I have a 20, a 12, and an 8, that equals one. That's 3 humans, but that's 1 FTE.
1 FTE, yes.
All right. So I just wanted to make sure that people could see kind of a little bit about how that's working.
Yeah.
And so to figure this out on the long form, you're not asked necessarily for social security numbers and that kind of stuff, but it's going to ask you how many people you have and what hours they work. You're going to need to have that information readily available. Yeah.
Right, and on the Schedule A, it's going to break it down a little bit more for you. And in the form, I wish I had one I could put up. If you have one, it'd be excellent. But on the actual form itself, in the Schedule A bracket, it's going to break that out for the individuals when they're filling it out. And it's going to say, like, part of the example is going to be, you know, like every average annual salary and hourly wage between January and March 31st, just saying, you know, was how much, how many people did you have working during then of your people working? And then you're going to come in and give them a value for that on that. The number system is based on quarter points too. It goes quarter, half, 3/4, and 1 point. So, you know, your example before, when you said you had a 10, a 20, and I believe you said
20, 12, and an 8.
20, 12, and 8. So a 20 would be a 1/2 point. The 12 is going to be a quarter, and the 8 is going to be a quarter, because they
And
don't
that's how you
round
get
up.
the FTE,
Right.
right? So they're going to give you an hour range. This amount of hours equals this quarter of a human,
Yes.
and then you just add up all the things.
Yes.
And guys, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing these words. I can't fill out this form myself just by hearing these words in this call.
Yes, and that's what I was saying
That's why
about.
yeah.
It sounds complicated, but it's really not. But relying on us, and when I say us, I'm talking about the SBDCs, Rebecca's team, and the SBA team. We're dealing with this on a daily basis, and sometimes we even throw acronyms around like everybody's supposed to know what they mean. And we understand. We also have compassion about. We understand. This is your first rodeo on this. You're in a bucket with everybody. Nobody's ever done a PPP loan, so. And it does look a little daunting in task, but the numbers are all fairly easy to work with, and they're fairly simple. There's no algebra in this, I can assure you that. So we don't have to worry about trigonometry or anything like that.
Yeah. So to get to the meat of one of Kathy's questions, in light of what you shared about, you know, how you're going to be able to group people by the number of hours, and it'll give them an assigned unit, stuff. So if I have 10 employees that work very part-time, are they considered 5 full-time equivalents or 10 employees? And let me take a stab at this, and you correct me where I'm at. So it depends on very part-time. The next question will be, was based on hours worked in a week, what are we talking about? And then if based on, like, if it happens to be 8, you'll get assigned a quarter employee. If it happens to be 12, you'll still get assigned a quarter. If it's 20 or 22, you might get a half, and you'll take each person the hours they work, and you'll get that hours that they work assignment, and you'll total those up to get your FTE. Is that accurate?
That is very close. That is very, very close. Yes, we're good.
Okay. So I just, because everybody, like, FTE is defined differently for different purposes, and I just wanted to make sure that on the spot where we finish this, where we fill this out, that there's a link, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't understand the stuff. What we have being shared on the screen here is some of the information, and scroll down, we're talking about the information about filling out FTE in the Schedule A of this form.
Yeah, Schedule A, thank you. I'm glad you got that. I was struggling trying to find one on my end to see if I could pull one up. So as you pull down through there, if you remember, Rebecca, when we talked about the easy form, these first 2 pages look similar, very similar. And it's going to be when we get over to the Schedule A part, which is right there, is going to be where we're talking about it. So there's where we're looking at the workout table. And as we look through there, you can see that we list the enter the salary, the hours, people. And that right there, this right here is the big difference between the long form, as we're calling this, and the easy form, is this right here. This is the meat and potatoes of the difference between them. At the end of the day, they both come up with the same results. Well, why would anybody want to spend time, Rebecca? Maybe the question, why would anybody want to spend time using this form? If you fall into a category where you had people that were laid off and they wouldn't come back to work, or they quit and you couldn't get them fired, and you drop below 25% of what you had when you filed for application, you'll be in this application, because we're going to check and see what we can come up with to help you get the most you can forgiven. A couple other things in there is the fact that if you dropped your wages for people of more than 25%, you'll be in this form right here. I said the other day, and I got called on it, and I'm still trying to get answers. I assume that nonprofits would have to be going the 3508 long form, and it may be, in fact, they can go easy form too. But yeah, you're circling right in there. The average FTEs during the borrower's chosen preference period. And again, we need to address that too, because even today on a call earlier, Rebecca, we had some confusion about the covered period. As you were talking about, you know, the April to June 5th. Mm-hmm. That time period is they call it an alternate period for those folks that were before June 5th. But after June 5th, it's not the alternate period. The alternate period is not just 24 weeks. So June 5th, after that, it's 24 weeks regardless. There's no alternate period in there. And we seem to have had some conflict with that.
Okay. So we have another question regarding FTEs. This is, are all salaried employees considered FTEs? So I get a salary, but I work 15 hours a week. Am I automatically a full-time equivalent?
I'm a salaried employee too, and I work 65 hours a week. So if you're a salaried employee and they get no overtime, they're getting straight salary, which would be, some places would call that an exempt employee, usually your managers and stuff like that. Those are FTEs, because a lot of them may, and there again, that's going to be a little bit, I'm going to go with the general knowledge of a salaried employee doesn't work 15 hours a week. A salaried employee normally works 45, 50 hours a week. They may work 6 hours on Monday. They may work 10 hours on Tuesday. They may work 12 hours on Wednesday. They may only work 2 hours on Thursday, whatever the combination there is. Most of your salaried employees are salaried because they're an annual salaried employee based on a 40-hour work week, or what would be equivalent to that. So I would count those as one FTE right there.
Okay. Right. And so remember that the reference for this for everybody is the Department of Labor standards for what is an FTE. So you're like, where do I go to find out what an FTE is? That's going to be, again, the Department of Labor standards. And so I want to go back to some things that are happening in the Q&A, because like, oh, wait, what can I count as forgivable? I'm talking about that list. A lot of people looking for clarification there. So talking about eligible expenses, including payroll, mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and health insurance premiums or benefits package that are a part of payroll. Is that, we didn't talk about that one. Does that one count?
That one does count.
Yeah.
What was that?
But we're still capped at the 100,000.
Gotcha.
On an employee. The one about the utilities, Caroline, what was that was in there about the transportation that was with the utility or something?
Yeah, the utilities, you can't just count transportation from your home to your office. This has to be like if I have a fleet, or if I have a trucking company where I'm actually using, putting gas and transportation expenses part of the business or the company. Okay.
So, so non-employee mileage stuff, like my fleet transportation, my truck, I own rolling stock, like that kind of transportation stuff.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So then I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and if the people helping me with this could clear the questions that pertained to eligible expenses and employee benefits. I do have a question that was given to me in advance regarding the $100,000 cap. If I'm a sole proprietor and 100% of what I get can be used for my salary, even if it's more than the 8-week equivalent, was that 15 and change? So if I'm a sole proprietor, can I just use it all to pay me and get the whole thing forgiven?
You could.
And get it forgiven?
Yeah, I was muted there for a minute. I was just talking, no one listening. I'm sorry. It's been a long day already. I've been up since 6 working on stuff. The cap is 100,000 is correct. If you're a sole prop, in our earlier in Tuesday's meeting, we talked about the fact that you're basically just all yours is 100% wages. Now, there is some caveats there. If you file a Schedule C and you had expenses that were related to the eligible expenses, like we talked about, like I'm a CPA and I rent a spot down there at Main and Commerce in Kansas City, and I have an office there, but it's just me. Now, I can deduct that. I could have had that office expense and paid it out of my PPP and count that. But the whole intent of the CARES Act, when it was Congress first passed it and the president signed it, before we got a hold of it, the whole intent was to pay wages. So the numbers, the 60%, we haven't addressed that yet, but the 60% you're required to use is wages based on your PP loan. So if you got a $10,000 PP loan, you had to spend $6,000 for wages minimum. And a lot of people think I spent $7,000, I got to come up with more expenses. No, we want you spending money on wages. So a sole prop, he should be 100%, and 99.9% cases should be all the money going to him. Yes.
Gotcha. In a case of a sole proprietor with no employees, if you have a sole proprietor with employees, you should probably pay them if you want to keep having employees.
Well, yeah, maybe.
All right. So,
I do have a question, Rebecca, that I got just earlier before we got onto this.
Okay.
That I thought was it's pretty interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna go back over to it, my email real quick. Somebody was asking in an email, was asking me about, what if I have an employee and say the employee quits, or I laid him off, but then when I tried to hire him, he wouldn't come back, or he just, he's living, because he was making more on unemployment than he would have made with me. And so my staff is reduced. Does that count against me? And in general, and I can get more specific on some of this, but if you had an employee leave you, or you laid them off for a while and the PPP came along, you're like, hey, I can hire you back. And they go, no, I don't want to come back because I'm making the extra $600 a week on unemployment, and you're only paying me $10 an hour. I'm making more sitting on unemployment. That's a real life situation that happened time after time after time. All the borrower or the employer needs to do is to document that they offered the job back and that the person declined the job and that they were unable to hire a qualified, skilled person to replace them by and these are not in any IFRs or anything like that. You took out like an ad in the Kansas City Star, you put out signs in a business journal, or you put out an ad, you put out signs outside your work trying to get somebody. As long as you made the effort and you can prove you made the effort to try to rehire, then we're going to work with you on that and do a little justification for you, not to have you be penalized for that.
Absolutely. And so the term that we've been using is documented good faith effort to offer the job. And to then record what the response was, and then to offer it publicly, right? Yes. So documented good faith effort is some of the stuff that we'd want to have in terms of documentation. And so, yeah.
And as you remember, Rebecca, too, in the IFR and the ruling and stuff in our training, December 31st is another key date, like February 15th was. And people who have had this situation happen, and let's say it happened, 4 weeks ago, they got their money, 8 weeks ago. So obviously they hadn't been able to spend all their money yet. And now this guy's left, or person has left, and they can't get them to come back. What I do? Remember, you have 24 weeks to either hire somebody to replace it, because all we're looking for is what did you have in place before February, and what are you going to have in place at the time of application, or December 31st pops in there, and you could have a qualified individual put in that position before December 31st and not be affected. So there's a little flexibility there just because the person left. And again, you're right. Documentation, people, it's all about documentation and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Yeah. So when it comes to documentation, I'm thinking that again, as I start to figure out, okay, it's time to talk about forgiveness. Let me get my hands on some paperwork. Probably should have my bank statements. Probably should have, if I have a payroll service, I should have all the documentation for the payroll service so that I have the payroll documents and reports of what I paid to who, tax reports that relate to payroll, those kind of things, and any payment receipts that relate to employee health insurance, retirement plans, that kind of thing as well. This is the kind of paperwork I should have. And it sounds like if I've offered a job to somebody and they don't come back, that I ought to add that documentation of the good faith effort to offer it back to them and then hire somebody new.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's critical because, like I said, I had that right before we got here. As far as I was a little late too, but that has been a question that's been popping up more and more. Is this, as we all know, and I'm saying it's real world. A lot of business owners out there running small businesses aren't paying people $100,000 a year generally, and therefore they're hiring people to help them because their company's growing. Usually, we're growing, so now I'm hiring a few people. You know, I used to make my widgets and then deliver them. Now I've hired a delivery person to deliver them. Now I'm making more widgets. I've hired somebody to help me box the widgets for the delivery person to deliver them.
Mm-hmm.
And typically those are salaried, or not salaried, but wage earning positions, intermediate, relatively new to the workforce. And they're not. They're being paid hourly and somewhere around, 10 to 15, maybe even $20 an hour. And when they shut them down and I couldn't make my widgets no more, I didn't have a PPP loan to let everybody go. I just laid them off, furloughed them so they could go draw unemployment because they got families to support.
Yeah.
They got, student loans to pay, or they got car payments, or whatever might be the situation. I didn't want them to starve to death, so I furloughed them and they could go get their unemployment.
Gotcha. So
and
what
once they get it, they
pardon.
stay there.
I'm so sorry, Mike. I
No, that's all right.
apologize.
Go ahead.
I apologize. Well, I was going to ask a question from the Q&A section about, well, what if the people who are helping me with this stuff are contractors rather than employees? Can that count as part of my forgiveness?
No, because in the beginning, in the IFR and in the CARES Act and the Flex Act, we've counted contractors as independent employees, and they could file for their own PPP loan because they were independent contractors. If you remember the other day when we was doing that thing, we had that little screen up, and it actually said sole props, self-employed contractors, independent contractors, 1099 wage earners. Those people had their own opportunity to go get it. So you should not have been counted. They should not have been counted in the first application when you filed for it. They should not have been counted as part of your employees. And if that happens, they need to get a hold of you because you need to help them restructure some stuff.
Yeah.
But if I filled out the application, Rebecca and I have Mike and Rebecca LLC.
I think you mean Rebecca and Mike, but please continue.
Actually, we meant Michael and not Rebecca LLC. But anyway, our part-time Rebecca LLC. But anyway, yes, Rebecca and Mike. I'm good with that. Rebecca and Mike LLC makes widgets, and we had 5 employees when we started. Okay, and we had 6 contractors because they were our drivers that went out and delivered our products to the people who purchased it from us here in Kansas. Those 6 contractors are not counted in our PPP. Only our 5 real employees were. Now I get down for filing forgiveness. I've got to count for my 5 employees. I could have 3, 2, I could have 12 contractors now working for us. That doesn't affect us in one way or the other.
Meaning that doesn't matter how many contractors I have, it's money I spend in traditional payroll that has associated payroll taxes that's eligible for forgiveness.
Right, correct. That's
Okay.
the big, that was right there. You spoke a whole lot right there. We're only giving you money for people you pay us tax on. So.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, that's the deal, guys, because this is
that's
all
it.
of our money redistributed, and those that pay payroll tax have access to this. And contractors did have an opportunity to apply for their own PPP financing, as well as the opportunity to choose whether or not to participate in the unemployment system. And so this is not awesome for people who didn't have this in their mind, especially as business owners on the front end of how this could work and wanting to use this money to cover those folks. And I get that. They're important to what you do every day, and not only in your ability to perform work for your customers, but they're important people in your lives. But they did have another way to access this, and unfortunately contractors are not a part of funds that can be used for forgiveness purposes.
I see the, and that is, I mean, that was a whole lot you said there that was absolutely hit the nail on the head. So we were really trying to get this money. This whole money issue was brought forward by Congress to keep people off of unemployment. It's what it was. And as we well know, us that's a little mature and stuff, you know, if you're a contractor and they stop your job, you can't go draw unemployment because you wasn't paying any unemployment tax on your wages, because most contractors file a Schedule C or something like that and deduct everything. So I'm gonna try this. There, I'm back.
Well, hello.
I know I'm used to pointing and stuff. My hands, I'm sitting here doing this and nobody sees me. So.
No, I get it. Hey, we've got another great question from Kathy. She asked, if my company has kept good copies of all payroll money spent, rent checks, and other payments and expenses allowed, what copies or schedules need to be turned in with a loan forgiveness application?
Very, very good question. And what you're going to want, Kathy, I believe it was, what you're going to want to do is you want to document and maintain those documents. Even if you turn them in with your application or not, you want to maintain them in your record for 7 years. But the documents we're going to look for is going to be something that when you turn in the application, Kathy, you're certifying that you use the funds that you state in that part that you fill out that we talked about Monday or Tuesday, I mean. And so if you have rent checks and stuff like that, you're going to total those numbers up and that's going to be there. Rent checks are great. That's a great source of documentation. That's fine. There's been some people out there that say you got to turn in your tax returns and all that. It's up to the lender, because the lender is going to have to concur with you about your certification. Our requirements are you document it, and we left it very vague. And the reason we do that is because, like in our standard 7A and 504 program, which, yes, folks, we do still do SBA loans, but we do it so that we give you the opportunity to use different non-traditional sources. When they applied, Rebecca, if you remember, we even had where people could come in with bank statements for independent or so, you know, I don't really have, I got this, you know, here's the cashier's check that I receive every, you know, we let them use anything they could, but it just has to, Kathy, it just has to make sense, use a little common sense and document it. If I was looking at rent personally, I would get my lease agreement, and that would be probably all the bank needs to see. If I'm talking about utility bills, I'd probably go online and print off some utility bills and to condense it, because you don't want to show up at your bank with 800 documents for them to have to filter through or scan in and all that. So I'd try to condense where I could on everything. But most people don't even use canceled checks anymore. It's money wire transferred or transferred from your bank account. And in those cases, I would even just provide them a copy of my bank account on my business account and go, see where I paid Rebecca her majority of the money, and I got my $4 for my pay, and it comes out to mine. So I would condense as much as possible, but you're doing the right thing if you kept copies of your checks and everything like that.
Okay.
And also, Mike, I know some of the lenders that actually kind of separate the accounts for the PPP in their business account, so that way they know what the money is being spent for. So depending on your bank, obviously, they also do that. And I think the bank information will be a great asset for you to provide to them.
Absolutely. So along the lines of wanting to have stuff to be able to direct people to, could somebody put some links, and I'm sorry, while I talk to you, I cannot effectively put links into the chat, but there had been some common PPP Q&A, long form links, that kind of thing. Some of the things that I'm seeing in the chat requests relate to where can I go to learn more about da-da-da. And so if some of y'all folks who are with us as panelists could put some of those commonly used links in there, that would be really helpful. I want to remind everybody.
You're talking about the actual instructions of the application?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, I'll put it in there.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
that'd be
much.
great.
I appreciate that.
And everybody on this conference call too, by the way, the number one thing, it's easy to remember, is sba.gov, and once you're there, it'll take you where you want to go. But we also, because we're with the Treasury, you can Google it, but I'm sure Carolina and Sheila can put that in there too. But that is an excellent web page and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I'm
that.
usually using the Treasury website, even though it's in our SBA website. It seems easier to navigate. I just put both of those in there.
You may talk about the, for the Treasury website, the question and answer portion. For folks who are not familiar with that, they do keep an updated running list of questions that have been asked pertaining to PPP on the question and answer page. So
that's great. So this is the Q&A on the Treasury website about PPP loans.
Correct.
Yes, and I just posted that, Rebecca, in the chat.
Go team. Love
Thank
to see
you,
that.
Carolina.
Good team. All right. So I want to remind the audience that, again, we're here to answer your questions in particular. And so don't be shy about adding questions into the Q&A function. And while we're waiting for some more of those questions to roll in, wanted to kind of help folks get a mental picture. Okay, so I had this loan, I documented this stuff, I did my dead level best to reach out for no cost help. Thank you for paying your taxes. We will help you put this together. You don't have to pay somebody. And we did our best to figure it out. And then we turn it into our lender. And then what happens? Like, help me figure out what happens next.
So that the bank actually will take over and review that. They have 60 days to make the determination as if the bank is going to do, say we're going to forgive this loan.
Okay.
Then they will send it to the SBA for approval and final, check, making sure that all the documents are in, that the bank did what they were supposed to do. They have 90 days to make that determination. So it might be a while until you hear if your loan is fully forgiven.
Gotcha. And the bank has a vested interest in helping me find documentation to make sure this is fully forgiven, right?
Yes, most definitely. They don't want to sit there and service these loans for the next 5 years.
No.
Okay. So we're not all coming from the bank background, but just to be clear, the bank, during that first 60 days that they have to help you figure this out, they're going to do everything they can think of to find appropriate proof to get this loan forgiven. Because what happened, guys, is because we were all trying to do this in a hurry, the bank's like, I'm not going to lend any money unless you make it so that I'm not at risk. And so then they put this is the bank's money. This is what you as a depositor put money into this bank. They turned around and they just let everybody have some. Right? So this is the depositor's money that's on the street right now. With
that's
a guarantee.
Crazy talk going on.
Oh yeah. You're like, how much do you like going to an ATM and asking for withdrawal and the bank still having some money? We like that. So trust that the bank has a wild interest in making.
You don't want to get a receipt that says go see Mike and Rebecca about their
No. I'll be like, no, Mike and Carolina and Sheila. No.
Yeah.
But so I just want to paint a picture for everybody that really clearly about just how badly the bank wants these loans entirely forgiven, and their deep motivation that if there is anything that they view to be suspect at all, they will come back to you and say, what can you tell me about this? Because each dollar that doesn't get forgiven, they not only have a depositor risk for, but then they have to pay someone to manage for 5 years while you try and pay it back. And so that's not only instant depositor risk, it's 5 years minimum of salary to pay people to do it. So they have a huge interest in making sure that this is forgiven for you. And so I want to make sure that everybody thinks of their lender as a partner in this process rather than an adversary.
And I want to go a little further into the weeds on that too, Rebecca. We made this program, you're right. We came out here and said, please go loan money to Carolina and Sheila for their company. The bank went, what's in it for us? And we said, we'll guarantee it, as we guarantee our 7A loan. So we're guaranteeing the loan in case Carolina and Sheila don't pay their loan. We'll come in and make it whole for them. But that being said, the lenders are your friend in this deal. And we, in the IFR, which you can read on any of the web pages been thrown out there and everything, the SBA went in order to get banks to come on board to do this, because this is not that lucrative for them. We put in there that we would hold them harmless for any mistakes or anything made, because we was going to put the onus back on the borrower to certify the funds were used correctly. And therefore, the banks are a little bit, they're like us. They're trying to get their head wrapped around this, because usually when you come into a bank, they pull your credit report. They do a background check on you. They might look at PACE, which is a system, look for bankruptcies. When you did your PPP loan, nobody pulled a credit report. Nobody did a background check on you. They accepted you at face value based on your signature on a document. Now, for the application to be forgiven, the same rules going to apply, but they're going to look at the, like Rebecca said, they're going to look at the documentation you give them, and they're going, okay, I understand that this is your canceled checks for your rent, for like that Kathy question. It's got April, May, and July. What happened in June? What? They're going to help you that way, because it is advantageous to them, because like she said, we don't, banks did, I forgot what the number was, Rebecca, we talked about the other day. Something like 90,000 loans were done in Missouri, PPP loans.
Yeah,
These
I think it's a little higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have staff to do that kind of work. These are numbers. To give you an idea, audience, listen, as I stated in the beginning, we started in 1954 here in Kansas City. We did more loans in the first 2 weeks of the PPP than they had done since 1954. SBA loans. It's phenomenal.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
60 years of work in 2 weeks. What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah, really. That's because I'm here now. It was easy to do. We did it.
Let's move on from that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
we have a question from Elaine in the chat, asking, so she's like, wait, I'm assuming we need to submit our payroll records, right?
Your expense on your payroll records, not.
Yeah. So you don't.
Because we don't ask you, Rebecca, who did you pay the money to? Most people have a chart though, or like a PowerPoint, or not PowerPoint, but a Excel spreadsheet, or maybe, yeah. And you may have their names in there, but you don't necessarily need to give that to them. You just need to account for the money. And if you pay a service, since we're talking about the 3508, a lot of these people will be using services that paid their payroll.
Yeah.
And so all they got to do is show that, show the transaction between you and the payroll service. You don't have to show all the way out to the end user.
Exactly. So then want to make sure that we understand that what you have to turn in is the form, right? And then you want to have the backup information available for when you get questions. But at the moment that I apply for forgiveness, do I have to have anything besides the form on the day when I turn it in?
You got to have the documents you're using to certify that you use the funds.
Okay. So
that's why I said you want to try to condense, not walk in there with 85 documents.
One giant PDF seems better than a cardboard box of bologna.
Well, someone like me of my age, I've got mine in a shoebox. That's my, filing system. So
more power to you. But if all you got is a shoebox, come see me and I'll help you whittle it down to something more like flip-flop size.
And I thought about something the other day when we got off phone. I didn't mean to mention it, but Rebecca, I thought about something. We do have some small business owners out there that may not have the ability or the devices or internet where they could do a PDF or something like that. That might be something y'all could help them convert a document or however you do it there. I don't know if you do that or.
We don't do it ourselves because Kansas City has a wealth of resources for that kind of thing in our library systems.
Ooh, see, I didn't think about that. Yeah. So people can get it done. You'd be able to point them in the right direction.
And we can help make introductions and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have another question in the chat. Okay, wait, I'm still not clear when the 24-week date starts. Is it when the funds were received?
Yes, the day you receive the funds into your account, from that day, if that's after June 5th, that starts the 24-week clock.
Okay. And if I got it before June 5th, I have a choice between 8 weeks or 24 weeks. Right?
So if you got your, and for real, just real life numbers, if you got your money on April 30th and you choose a 24-week, just for example, that I just happen to have it in my head, October 15th is the end of your 24 weeks. That's
Okay.
how long 24 weeks is. I mean, it feels like a lifetime since we've been in this lockdown anyway, but to put it in perspective, if I got a loan April 30th, October 15th is the end of my 24-week period. So I got from now to October 15th to use up my funds if I hadn't already used them.
Okay.
So that's a good,
helpful.
I mean, because we're what, September 17th, so you got another month?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got the money in April 30th, which was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So we have
Wow.
another question in the Q&A for the SBA team here, guys. It says, people need to be sure they are adjusting wages for anyone who has a wage over $100,000 per year, right? For my client with weekly payroll, anyone who makes over $19.23 in 1 week, I adjust down to $19.23. Is that right? Like $19.23 a week?
Hey, let me grab my calculator. That's a bigger number than I can get.
I know. I was trying to do it before I asked the question, but I was like, I'm just going to put this on the experts.
He's absolutely correct. Yes, because that multiplied by 8 out. Yes, you want to reduce it down to anybody, your client who is that, because that should have been reduced for the loan application to get the PP. And also, why we're on that topic, guys, if you got somebody, which is going to be most cases, if you got somebody that's making $50,000, as we heard earlier, we was talking about some of the benefits, like paying their, part of their health insurance, whatever benefits that are associated with it. Those can count in those people who don't cap at 100. But even if they're at 90 and you start adding that stuff up, you're still capped at 100.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have been capped to start with at 100, so you don't get to count any of that, but you may be close, and when you start adding them, you get to 100. So once you get to 100, we're done. There's no more other anything you can do. But somebody down in the 50, 40, 70,000 range, great income, you can add in some of the benefits on that too. And again, guys, you can spend more than 60% of your PPP loan for wages. Some people, as I used in our example, I think it was Tuesday or it may have been yesterday, time to run together. If I have a cleaning service that I had my 3 employees and we run around in vans cleaning carpet and doing all that, now I may be busy. All my employees may be working 65, 70 hours a week. I may be paying a ton of overtime because now we're doing cleansing and, coming there spraying for all the bugs and not bugs, but viruses, using disinfectant, stuff like that. So I may be extremely busy, and that's okay. You can pay your people, as long as you don't go over 100 grand, that 50,000 a year person could win up to 75 in overtime and stuff like that.
Yeah, because overtime counts.
Yes, bonuses count too.
Yeah, overtime counts, bonuses count. And if you want to hire somebody temporarily as an employee to mow the lawn of your piece of real estate, as long as you hire them as an employee and pay taxes for them, that counts.
Withholdings, yes. As long as you have withholdings on them.
That's right.
A lot of banks are going to ask too, Rebecca, they're going to ask for a 941, 943.
Oh, wait, what's that?
It's a secret form. I'll tell you in a secret. All right, so the 941 or 943 is the form you fill out and send to the IRS quarterly about your withholdings on your employees.
They're going to verify my taxes with those. Okay.
If they ask you for that, they may. So my point is, if I turn my application in today to Rebecca Bank and Trust, she may go, I want your 941 being required to be filed October 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go, oh, well, okay. That's okay, guys. Don't panic. Just go home, wait till you file your form, come back and give it to them. Because again, remember, Caroline was talking about that 60-day window they have to turn your application in So if they're asking you to get information, they want you to get it so they know through experience, hopefully of dealing with the portal, that this is going to be needed. And so a few days waiting is better than trying to go ahead and shove it through and then get it kicked back saying we need additional information.
Gotcha. So 941 verifies my federal income taxes. 943,
943, yep.
It covers what I may have paid or held back in withholding. All right. Okay. So I just you're like, wait, when you hit me,
I'm not an IRS official, but yeah, I know it's one of those IRS forms, you know.
Exactly. You hit me with a form number. I'm like, wait, my brain's just stopped. But it's just the bank may ask you to fill out a form that says,
well, you file it every quarter. You're required to do it every quarter, but that's what I'm saying. You may turn it in between quarters, and they may want it just for verification or backup documentation.
And that's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
You'll have, especially most of you are using a payroll service, and some of this withholding stuff, you never touch it. That's part of what you're paying for. Yes. And so you say, can I check on this? Sure. Yeah. So just don't want it to get too juiced up.
Right. And I think that falls back into the whole premise that I said, the gold nugget. Some people out there are going to tell you and try to scare you about, oh, they're going to need a form 638, a form 237, and if you don't do this right, you can be liable for every penny and go to jail.
Just don't commit fraud. You'll be fine. You know what I mean? If
you're out there doing what's right, you're doing what's right, and we're not going to come down here and lock Granny up and put her in jail because
good faith
she
effort.
Put 7 instead of a 6.
That's right. Good faith effort. You're going to be fine. If you're claiming fake employees, let me introduce you to the color orange. Yeah, right? I mean, just don't be weird. It's going to work out okay. And there's
my introduction.
Huh? Right, there's a reason they don't let me write marketing copy for the federal government. Okay, now guys, as we're coming to the close of our time, I think it makes sense to address this potentially as our final question. Elaine asks, how much time do I have to apply for this? So I'm learning about it now, but how much time do I have to actually fill this out and do the things?
You want me to blow your mind?
10 months?
You want me to blow your mind, Rebecca?
Sure.
You could file the last month of the 11th month, 4 years and 11 months from now, you could apply for forgiveness for your last payment and we'd have to accept it. If you don't want to make payments, you have 10 months.
Okay.
But you can file for forgiveness anytime. I found that out since our last meeting.
Okay, so if I don't ever want to make a payment, I have 10 months from when the money showed up in my account. But if I'm willing to make payments and just get it refunded to me whenever the government's going to refund it to me, I can wait 4 years and 11 months. Yeah.
Have one payment left and apply for it. I told you I'd blow your mind.
Yeah, now it's going to take about as much time as it takes to get your refund from anything. So let's be aware of that.
Yeah, I found it interesting on that. And the only reason I don't mention it to muddy the water for anybody. What I'm trying to convey is that the legal department with the government, which is the Department of Justice and all that, they review the laws after Congress makes them, and they go in there and they go, okay, you're right, 10-month deferment, that's fine, all that. But the way the law was written, we didn't put any caps on either end of that. And so therefore somebody could ask for a deferment 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. Obviously it makes no sense. Why would you make payments and then ask for forgiveness? Unless you're just somebody that's just got, needs to be a little rubber room with padding.
I was so busy killing all the germs in my new germ killing business.
I'm hoping 10 months from now, we're not still killing germs. Let's be honest.
If you need help with a good faith, well-described reason, that's why you reach out to the Small Business Development Center. I have a compatriot, Joel, behind the scenes, who's going to remind you guys in the chat about how to reach out to somebody one-on-one to talk about your situation and help fill out these forms, because Carolina and Mike and Sheila are all part of the SBA team to help, but they spend a lot of their day talking to the lenders about their half of this. And so for the borrower part, us, the Small Business Development Center, are really a first spot to go to.
And I'll give a little plug here for you too, Rebecca. you know, Carolina, Sheila, myself, and then some of the other people in the background of the SBA Kansas City District Office you'll never meet, but are there helping in the foreground for us stars to be out in front. But, you know, like I said when I started this, we handle Kansas and we handle Missouri. If we're over, for some reason, we have to be in Topeka for Small Business Week, and we're over there for the whole day, all these emails from all these lenders, like Rebecca said, are going to pile up, plus yours are going to pile up. And then when we come back to work, we still got the next day piling up, and we get behind on some stuff. It's just the nature of the beast. I can only call so many people a day. You know, I can't be working 2 phones. You're local. And some of the people that filed PPP loans did it with some national brand bank who is in South Dakota or somewhere out like California or something. I don't know what in the world you're doing out there, but it's nice to have somebody local that you can reach out to. And once this pandemic's over, you'll be able to meet with people too. But you can do Skype meetings with Rebecca and her team.
Yeah.
Phone, Skype, Zoom. I mean, it's somebody local who's vested in your business. And as she put in I think Michelle put in the background back there, guys, I want to say this too. Right now is the time, if you're a small business owner and you're going through this difficult period, it's time to reach out to the SBDC and talk about how do you change your business plan? What can you do to survive during this time, and what changes? They have literally hundreds of thousands of different forms to look at and people, because they're all tied together. They all have access. They can get access to information you can't or I can't get a hold of. Even I'm SBA, but they can help you in rewriting your business plan, or maybe coming up with a new plan to proceed in different. You may turn to 180 degree on your business plan and go a different direction. I know a lot of restaurants now they have to deliver, and they never delivered before. There's a lot of stuff that goes on when you change your business plan. I would strongly suggest you to reach out to Rebecca and her team, because that is a big change, and that may be the difference between you being open and come Christmas and not. So
yeah, we're here for all business topics, one of which is financing. But yeah, if you need new customers, figure out new markets, new delivery channels, we're here for the whole thing. And then when you make so much money that you want to leave it to your kids, we'll help you with that.
I'm adoptable. You can adopt me for a small fee.
Okay, and Mike's available for adoption. So, you know, we learned it all.
I'm looking for a new mom and dad. I'll live in the basement. I'll charge a bunch of stuff off to you. Yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Mike's available for adoption, and the SBDC, which is funded by the Small Business Administration, is here to help as a first line of defense. And we are delighted to have all of you from the SBA take the time to answer questions directly to the public through this venue today. Today was the last of the series of 3. And I want to say a huge and grateful thank you. And so,
thank y'all too. I know we've had laughs and we've had fun with this, but ladies and gentlemen, the serious note is we're here to help you. I know it seems taunting or down, you know, it's just, oh my gosh, I can't, you know, you're covering your eyes, staying up late at night thinking about it. Guys, we're here to make the process easier, make it like a walk through the park for you. I do appreciate y'all's attendance, your comments and your questions. We definitely need to do this. And also, I think y'all have a survey that comes out, right, Rebecca, at the end or something? No?
I confess that Michelle handles all of that for our team, and that I will, if you
Michelle's
receive,
gone.
Yeah, I know Michelle's got to be in 2 places at the same time today, but I'll tell you this. If you receive a survey about, hey, what'd you think of these SBA Q&A sessions? That is from us. It's legit. Please fill it out. It would help us greatly. And if you don't get one, it means we didn't have to send it. And that's all I know.
That's it. Well, I was going to say, because I know that other partners we have, SCORE, Women's Business Count, it helps us and to be able to get together the material and the programs to present to small business owners, covering topics they'd like to hear about and differences we can do to help the information get out there to them. So I was just going to say, please do fill that out.
Yeah.
And let them know what they're doing. You can shoot her an email. I'm sure Rebecca would love an email. Just tell her what you think about the meetings and what you'd like to see in the future.
There you go.
We'll be glad to do anything we can.
Well, maybe the next time we should make it in the afternoon and encourage afternoon beverages. That's all I'm saying. Maybe that's my suggestion for next time.
I-
On that
I'm-
note,
on that
everybody have a
note,
great day.
Yes. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.